Come away with me in the night. Come away with me and I will write you a song. Come away with me on a bus. Come away where they can't tempt us with their lies. And I wanna walk with you on a cloudy day in fields where the yellow grass grows knee high. So won't you try to come away with me and we'll kiss on a mountain top. Come away with me and I'll never stop loving you. While I'm safe there in your arms, so all I ask is for you to come away with me in the night. Come away with me.
Blood will flow, flesh and steel are one, drying in the color of the evening sun. Tomorrow's rain will wash the stains away. Something in our minds will always stay. Perhaps this final act was meant to clinch a lifetime's argument. Nothing comes from violence, and nothing ever could. For all us born beneath an angry star, lest we forget how fragile we are. On and on the rain will fall, like tears from a star, like tears from a star. tears from a star, like tears from a star. On and on the rain will say how fragile we are, how fragile we are, how fragile we are, how fragile we are. Down into her brown eyes and said, say a prayer for me. She threw her arms around him, whispered, God will keep us free. They could hear the riders coming. He said, this is my last fight. If they take me back to Texas, they won't take me back alive. There were 7 Spanish angels at the altar of the sun. They were praying for the lovers in the valley of the gun. When the bells stopped and the smoke cleared, there was thunder from the throne. And 7 Spanish angels took another angel home.
She reached down and picked the gun up that lay smoking in his hand. She said, Father, please forgive me. I can't make it without my man. And she knew the gun was empty, and she knew she couldn't win. But her final prayer was answered when the rifles fired again. There were 7 Spanish angels at the altar of the sun. They were praying for the lovers in the valley of the gun. When the battle stopped and the smoke cleared, there was thunder from the throne. And 7 Spanish angels took another angel home.
There were 7 Spanish angels at the altar of the sun. They were praying for the lovers in the valley of the gun. When the battle stopped and the smoke cleared, there was thunder from the throne. 7 Spanish angels took another angel home. All right, y'all, help me now.
There were 7 Spanish angels
At the
altar of the sun.
Oh, I believe
They were praying for the lovers
that it was.
in the valley of the gun. When the battle stopped and the smoke cleared,
There was thunder.
on the throne.
Oh, yeah.
And 7 Spanish angels took another angel home.
Tell me, how can you stand there with your broken heart, ashamed of playing the fool? But one thing can lead to another. It doesn't take any sacrifice. Oh, father and mother, sister and brother, if it feels nice, don't think twice. Just shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna work out fine if you only will. Do as I say, yeah. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way you feel. Things are gonna be much better if you only will. Well, you can run, but you cannot hide. This is widely known. And what you plan to do with your foolish pride when you're all by yourself alone? Once you tell somebody the way that you feel, you can feel it beginning to ease. I think it's true what they say about this squeaky wheel, always getting the grease. Better to shower the people you love with love. Yes, and show them the way that you feel. I know things are gonna be just fine if you only
she took her love for to gaze a while upon the fields of barley. In his arms she fell as her hair came down among the fields of gold. Will you stay with me? Will you be my love among the fields of barley? We'll forget the sun in his jealous sky as we lie in fields of gold. See the west wind move like a lover's soul upon the fields of barley. Feel her body rise when you kiss her mouth among the fields of gold. Never made promises lightly, and there have been some that I've broken. I swear in the days still left, we walk in fields of gold. We walk in fields of gold. Many years have passed since those summer days among the fields of barley. See the children run as the sun goes down among the fields of gold. You'll remember me when the west wind moves upon the fields of barley. You can tell the sun in his jealous sky when we walked in fields of gold. When we walked in fields of gold. When we walked in fields of gold.
You fill up my senses like a night in a forest, like the mountains in springtime, like a walk in the rain, like a storm in the desert, like a sleepy blue ocean. You fill up my senses, come fill me again. Come, let me love you, let me give my life to you. Let me drown in your laughter, let me die in your arms. Let me lay down beside you. Let me always be with you. Come, let me love you. Come, love me again. mountains in springtime, like a walk in the rain, like a storm in the desert, like the sleepy blue ocean. You fill up my senses, come fill me again.
Maybe I didn't treat you quite as good as I should have. Maybe I didn't love you quite as often as I could have. Little things I should have said and done, I just never took the time. But you were always on my mind. You were always on my mind. Maybe I didn't hold you all those lonely, lonely times, and I guess I never told you I am so happy that you're mine. If I made you feel second best, girl, I'm sorry I was blind. 'Cause you were always on my mind. You were always on my mind. Tell me that your sweet love hasn't died. Give me one more chance to keep you satisfied. Satisfied. Little things I should have said and done, I just never took the time. But you were always on my mind. 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 has to have a name, not the same as her mom's, but a name just the same. A little ray of sunshine has come into the world. A little ray of sunshine in the shape of a girl. We'll show her the dress that she'll wear with the gold flowing hair that nature provided. A little ray of sunshine has come into the world. A little ray of sunshine in the shape of a girl. A little ray of sunshine. I wanna know if you think she looks good in the pink her grandma has bought her, our own little daughter. She can make you feel good. She can make you feel that it's all worthwhile. Only by her smile.
For you, there'll be no more crying. For you, the sun will be shining. And I feel that when I'm with you, it's alright. I know it's right. To you, I'll give the world. To you, I'll never be cold. 'Cause I feel that when I'm with you, it's alright. I know it's right. And the songbirds are singing like they know the score. And I love you, I love you, I love you like never before. And I wish you all the love in the world, but most of all, I wish it from myself. And the songbirds keep singing like they know the score. And I love you, I love you, I love you like never before. Like never before. Like never before.
Her hands held me gently from the day I took my first breath. Her hands helped to guide me as I took my first steps. Her hands held me close when the tears would start to fall. Her hands were quick to show me that she would take care of it all. Her hands were there to brush my hair or straighten a wayward bow. Her hands were often there to comfort the hurts that didn't always show. Her hands helped me hold the stars in place and encouraged me to reach. Her hands would clap and cheer and praise when I captured them at length. Her hands would also push me, though never down or in harm's way. Her hands would punctuate the words, "Just do what I say." Her hands sometimes had to discipline to help bend this young tree. Her hands would shape and mould me into all she knew I could be. Her hands are now twisted with age and years of work. Her hands now need my gentle touch to rub away the hurts. Her hands are more beautiful than anything can be. Her hands are the reason that I am me. Firstly, welcome to you all, Patricia's family, as we gather here. A small group of people today, but the people in Patricia's life who have loved her and who have known her the best. Today there will be smiles and maybe some tears, but hopefully no regrets. My name is Simon, and along with Brendan and each of the staff here at Parkside, it has been our privilege to have been invited to care for Pat after her death and to hold the first part of her service of farewell here today. As you all know, there are some of Pat's family who unfortunately cannot be here today due to the current COVID lockdowns, and so I'd like to mention that we are thinking of them as they watch and participate in this service from their home states. If you have a mobile phone on you, you might like to take a moment to turn it off or onto silent, as this time is Pat's. After our service here in the chapel, you're welcome to stay here at Parkside for a brief or for a time of refreshment, and a time maybe to share your own memories and stories and to offer each other the support that you all need. And a brief burial service will be held tomorrow afternoon at the Fawcett Cemetery, where we'll reunite Pat. Perhaps through Pat's death, we are reminded that our lives are full of seasons. There's a time for this and a time for that. There are beginnings and there are endings. Patricia was a lady who loved her garden, and in particular her own little patches of paradise, firstly at Primrose Sands and then later at Wivenhoe. No doubt as a gardener she watched the seasons that took place, and she watched the growth of her garden around her, and she would have learnt when to prune a branch here or dehead some flowers there, when to pick them, when to allow them to grow just a bit more, when to put the whippersnipper down. At times she would have observed birds nesting in the trees and the wildlife who sheltered in the protection that her garden offered. And sometimes when we think about seasons, we remember that autumn signals the end of an age of life. In the garden, life is declining and winter is about to set in. Dead leaves are falling to the ground, but they're not alone. As they break down, they provide a rich, fertile new bed for seeds to germinate. The seeds of new life are also falling. We think about a plant shedding its seeds, the seed falling to the ground. It seems to die, but in the act of dying, it settles into the earth, giving birth to the new green shoot, beautiful and fragile. In the winds and storms of autumn, the seeds are shaken from the branches. Sometimes they're caught by a gentle breeze, other times a violent storm. In the end, they fall to the earth, which is ready to receive them and is life-giving. Dying is a part of living and a step along the road to ongoing life. To Pat's family, may I say this: watch for the seeds that Pat has planted in your life, the way that she taught you to live, the values that she imparted to you, the character traits that you thought were hers that you now find are yours, the skills she learnt that she has passed on to you, the life contentment that she discovered is now passed to you. The way she treated everybody with respect, with kindness, a listening ear for those in need, the help she gave to someone. Pat was always there, always supporting, always loving. We come together today because we strongly believe that all human life is valuable, and when a human life ends in death, something is lost to us which can never be brought back. We are reminded through this service that we will all face death, but that we can celebrate life. We are offered a unit into their family. Being born in those post-war years, times were tough, and it was no exception for the Byrne family, perhaps even harder as their mum Stella was profoundly deaf, so Pat was mostly raised by her elder sisters Stella, Monica and Kath. Pat shared a particularly close bond throughout her childhood with her younger brother Jimmy, who was a lot closer to her in age than her elder sisters. The family, being Irish, were raised Catholic. They attended a Catholic-run school and, of course, Mass on Sundays. Patricia sometimes struggled with the hypocrisy at times of religion, and she witnessed and maybe at times was subject to herself the severity and the cruelty of the nuns, and she decided after that that religion probably wasn't really for her. Time went on, and Pat left school at about the age of 14, and she started her apprenticeship in hairdressing, which she did for some 12 months or so. Eventually, she was to meet a young man by the name of Stanley Rex Hawker, and they were married in the Caulfield Church of England on the 20th of March 1945. Pat recalled after her marriage being chased down the street by the Catholic priest, exclaiming her marriage wasn't recognised and offering to marry her and stand properly in the Catholic Church. She declined his offer. She later worked for the Swedish Ericsson company, soldering components in the factory making the Erico phones. It wasn't long after that that the children started to arrive. Julie Marie, David Lindsay, Jennifer Ruth, Trevor James, Christopher John, and finally Catherine Joan. Stan got a job on the Snowy Mountains scheme, and his work took him all over Victoria, and the family remember a lot of moves in those early years. One such place that they lived was Cabramurra in New South Wales. Pat and the family had never experienced living in a snowy mountain town, and Pat remembered hanging the cloth nappies on the clothesline to dry, only having to go and beat the frost off them 5 minutes later. The girls remembered the men having to come around every morning and dig out the snow that had built up overnight, sometimes resulting in a late start, or if they were really lucky, a day off from school. Something the girls weren't overly fussed about. As happens, life went on for the Hawker family, and it was in the very early 70s that the family moved from the big island up north to the little one down south. Once again, Stan's work prompted the move to the hydro scheme of Tassie. After living a somewhat nomadic life, it was in Primrose Sands that the very first house that Pat and Stan owned was purchased for the princely sum of $11,000. Pat, never one to be sitting idle, soon set about making the house a home. It was said that Stan could fix a car with a rubber band or a pair of stockings. The same was true for Pat, though not with a car. But she could patch pretty much anything up. She'd work out the mechanics of how something worked. With a bit of ribbon, a piece of wire, a dab of glue, she'd have it back up and working again. I guess growing up in those hard depression years really taught her how to make the most of anything. The Primrose Sands home garden started as a rocky outcrop, but it soon began to flourish under Pat's green thumbs. It was rumoured that Pat probably never bought a plant from a nursery, much preferring to snip a cutting or pinch a few seeds to start off in her own garden. She would roll massive boulders that could hardly be lifted by a burly man to create garden edges and features. She loved the rambling, bright, colourful place that her garden became. As most of you would know, Pat probably wasn't the most social person. She was a quiet soul. She found the love and support given to her from Stan and her family enough. She enjoyed the simple things, going for drives to see the scenery and trips away in their caravan. Life changed dramatically when Pat lost her Stan in 1988. Before that, Pat had never had to drive a car or deal with a bank, never had to phone a tradie or a business, but in her no-nonsense, resourceful, determined style, Pat mastered all of these things. She got her licence at 60 and drove until her sight deteriorated and she had to give it up. It was about the mid-90s when Pat decided it was time to move from down south to the northwest coast. The girls, Jenny and Kathy, had moved up here, and she felt it was time to let the Primrose Sands home go. She'd seen a real estate advertisement that one of the girls had sent down to her of a little 1930s miner's cottage in Wivenhoe on a 3/4 acre block, and her words were, "I want that one." No offers, no negotiations, she just bought it. And she started work on the overgrown garden on pretty much the first day. In fact, I was told you pretty much had to confiscate the mower and whippersnipper off her. I'd like to invite Chris's son, who's recorded some memories, Chris, Pat's son, who has recorded some memories and stories to us, and I'd like for us to share that with you now.
Hi everyone. I'm really disappointed that I and Jude and the family are unable to make it down to join you as we remember and celebrate Mum's life. Julie too's in the same situation. She can't get down there, and there are many others that, because of COVID and other circumstances, are unable to be with us today. And even Sue Hawker is in Perth. She went over and it was a planned trip, and otherwise she'd have been with us today too, to help remember and celebrate Mum's life. But it's not to be, but at least this way we can participate and share some experiences and thoughts. Julie did send me some words, so I'd like to start by reading those to you if you'd bear with me while I read them. And she writes, "My heart is breaking with being unable to be there today to say goodbye to our precious Mum and Nana. There aren't enough words to describe how I feel, and there are no specific things that stand out because every minute spent with Mum is a special moment. I feel lucky and grateful that we had Mum and that she was there for us always, to listen, to sympathise and comfort. She didn't always have an easy life, but battled on regardless. Growing up, I always felt loved and secure, as I'm sure we all did. And after nearly 73 years, there are too many memories to put into words. Mum is not gone and never forgotten, and will be there in our hearts forever." And of course, Julie is right. There aren't enough words to describe how we feel about Mum and the memories that we have and can share with her. And I often think, even being a parent, as many of us are, how did she and Dad cope? 6 children under the age of 13. And then you consider all the moves we had, and just getting about in general. How did they do that? But was there ever a complaint? I certainly never heard one. And I've been in touch with many of our cousins, Kevin and Jude and Carol, Maggie, Dennis, Sue, Gay and Pam, and even Uncle Alan and Nell. And they all have nothing but the fondest memories of Mum, and they loved her dearly and had great compassion and thought her to be a very special lady, and of course she was. And she was the youngest of her siblings, as far as the daughters went, with Stella, Mon and Kath being somewhat older than her. But their daughters remember Mum coming and visiting. They were probably only 4 or 5, and they remember Mum coming out to visit. She was dinked over on the back of Dad's bike. Mum would have been 13 or 14 or somewhere around that age. And with all those journeys we made, moving house, growing up, Mum just took them in her stride. It wasn't a problem for her. And I remember she came to visit Jude and I when we were living in Penang, and Matthew was just a toddler. She came there with Auntie Mon, and they had a great time. And then just after the passing of our dad, Mon and Myra brought her up to Brisbane, and she was there for the Brisbane World Expo. When you look back, Mum was really well travelled. Our cousin Pam and Sue remember when we were living in Moore, so were they, and they can remember coming over and visiting when we were in Moore, but that was before Kathy and my time. And that was probably about the time we started with all our moves, when we went to the Snowies, where of course I was born. And as recently, in one of my recent trips to Tassie, I remember Mum recalling living in the Snowies and how we lived on the lower side of the road, and come winter when it snowed, we'd be dug out they'd have to dig us out. But it wasn't a complaint, it was just what it was, and that was what Mum was like. And our dearest Mum's journey has not always been easy, and these are some words from Jenny. Our dearest Mum's journey has not always been easy, with bumps and turns and hills to climb. With loss and heartbreak, her strength and determination, she made that journey. Mum loved picnics in the bush, making fire to cook a sausage, which of course had to be burnt, and loved watching the grandkids. She liked strawberry ice cream in a cone, a decent cup of tea, and liked to dislike politicians. Didn't like yogurt or lumpy porridge, but most of all, she loved her family. And recently, she certainly didn't like the yogurt when they were giving her some medicine. She said, "It's not yogurt, is it? I don't like yogurt." And yes, she loved her family. And each one of us knows this, and the sacrifices she would make for us. And they often went more than just eating her own ice cream slowly so that she could give it to one of us. And we all knew who that was, don't we, Kathy? But Kathy, you provided some memories too, and I'd like to share with everyone what you wrote. And you write, "The memories that stay with me are the ones that remind me of how special Mum was, and the way she cared and loved her family so dearly, not thinking of herself, never expecting anything from anyone, and quietly dealing with life's challenges as they came along without fuss. My childhood was filled with happy, adventurous times, exploring our neighbourhood, which was ever changing, as we had lots of moves in those early years. Lots of scrapes and scratches and tears and laughter, but the constant security of knowing you were loved dearly and that everything would come out in the wash. I remember," writes Kathy, "the big move to the Upper Isle, knowing very little of Tasmania, as at that time I was 9. And for Chris and I, it was an exciting adventure. We were going overseas. But for our older brothers and sisters, you guys were teenagers, and we both realised that must have been much more stressful for you, leaving behind your family and familiar friends, I should say, and familiar surrounds. But Mum was always there for us, supporting and patient. I remember staying at the little Travellers Rest Hotel in Sandy Bay, having peaches on cornflakes for the first time and feeling like royalty. I remember Chris and I throwing rocks into the Derwent River, where the casino now stands, with Mum sitting on the rocks in the sun. I remember giving Mum lots of worrying times in my youth, as all of us did. I regularly went bushwalking on Mount Wellington with my best friend, and on one occasion when I was 12, we missed the last bus home. Getting home late at night, being the days before mobile phones, we couldn't let Mum know. And I remember receiving some very stern words from Dad. Most of his worry, worrying about what could have happened. But from Mum, it was just hugs and sheer relief that I was safe. There were so many sad times, of course. Losing Dad was a great distress. And Mum was there for all of us with comfort, strength and comfort that I will never forget. Small moments in your life are the most powerful, but in life there are a million special small moments with Mum. It's just impossible to choose which ones are the best. So take them all with me forever, and I'll treasure them. You'll always be with us. You'll always be in my heart. So thank you, Kathy. They were wonderful words. And I said at the start that I miss not being with you today in person, but hopefully, though, I'm having the opportunity, along with the kids, to be able to stream this service. So in one sense, I'm there with you, and I'm celebrating Mum's life. And I'm grieving with you too. And that's not a bad thing, because our grief is just a testament of our love for Mum. I know Trevor has always been there too, and he wants to say some words also. So I'll pass over to the celebrant, and hopefully he'll ask Trevor to come up, who hasn't already done so, to say some words. Love you all. See you soon.
Well, pretty hard to elaborate on that, isn't it? Phew. Well, we all know what an amazing lady Mum was. I'd just like to reflect on a few memories, which are many, but I recall when I was young, and other times as well, when I did something wrong, and I mean something I did that I should not have done. Corryong, Camp Coburn, Melbourne, many places in Melbourne, Frankston, Coburg, Geelong, and we ended up Tasmania. She was always there and always did the best for us. And one of the most important things she did for me and Vicky was when the children were young, Vicky had to have quite a serious operation. But she travelled to Melbourne with us, taking care of the children, and then after that coming home and stayed with us and made sure everything was fine. She just worked so hard for us, and those memories are just amazing. And speaking of the children, I'm sure Marie and Tony have great memories of staying at Primrose Sands and having holidays there, and also staying there when Vicky was not well. And I'm sure they still have memories of being bathed in the washing machine, because at that stage they only had a very small home, they hadn't had a proper bathroom. And because of that, after all that, Mum often wore pink, and that's where she became known as Pink Nanny. And I know from me, you would love to be here and say something about that, because it was her that started off Pink Nanny, and she would always be her Pink Nanny to her and Tony. And I'm sure they recall lots of good times spending with their Pink Nanny on the beach with the dogs, fossicking for things on the beach. And for Marie, I know you'd love to be here, Marie, and say something. But we have the next best thing being live streamed here, so you can share all this with us. And Tony and Monica and Archer and Cedric as well. I'm sure you have memories of going to Pink Nanny's home and having tea and cakes and drinks and playing out in the garden. And just having a lapse here, just give me a moment. Also, Mum always commented on the lovely cards Marie would send to her at Christmas, birthdays and Mother's Day, and Tony as well. And she really enjoyed those cards, and the words that they put into those cards was amazing. And with the young boys, I'm sure that they would have admired Pink Nanny's collectibles and ornaments she had all around the house. As I did when I was a young boy, I remember travelling to Inverloch and visiting my Auntie Kath, Mum's sister, and Nana Burns, Mum's mum, and she had all these ornaments as well, and I remember being amazed and being told, don't touch them. If you touch them, put them back carefully. And I remember that very well. And all this help Mum gave us over the years, she very rarely complained, and I don't think she had anything to say bad about anybody other than a politician. I'd just like to tell you a story Kathy told me recently. When when Dad passed away, we helped Mum get a licence, and anyway, they gave her independence to get to and from Sorrel to go to the supermarket. And I'm not sure what the fella's name was, but she got to know some young fella there, which was a little bit down and out. And she would give him, this is what sort of person she'd give him a lift from Sorrel to the supermarket and sometimes the supermarket back. But Kathy said to me one day they were in the supermarket, because everybody called Mum, Mum. And she heard this voice, Mum, Mum. And it was him yelling out. And everybody thought she was his son. But that's the way Mum was. She had care for everybody, and she welcomed all members, all new members in the family and friends all the time, consistently. When everybody come to see her, she would always be happy to see anybody, and never complained. And we can be sad now that she's gone, but we can also be happy that in her past weeks and months that she didn't suffer very badly. I know she had arthritis quite bad, but she never complained about that either, and she was always happy to see us. And we know that your body's gone now, Mum, but your spirit and love will be with us forever.
Thanks, Trevor. Also, Chris, for sharing your own thoughts and other people's thoughts with us. Pat lived well and independently here at her home in Wivenhoe until January this year, when she had a fall. After a stay in hospital, it was decided that Pat couldn't return home due to her failing eyesight and hearing, and the decision was made for her to move into Yamina Park. Pat never really enjoyed living there, but she did settle a bit after the first month or so. It was here last Monday, August 30, that Pat left us. I would like to share with you just a short poem, and it says, "If roses grow in heaven, Lord, please pick a bunch for me. Place them in my mother's arms and tell her they're from me. Tell her I love and miss her, and when she turns to smile, place a kiss upon her cheek and hold her for a while. Because remembering her is easy, I do it every day. But there's an ache within my heart that will never go away."
Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me. Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly. Birds fly over the rainbow. Why then, oh why
And so we begin to close this chapter of Pat's life. But I urge you, Pat's family, to commit yourself to the telling and the retelling of her stories. For it's the telling of these stories that will keep Pat living on in all of your hearts and your minds for the generations to come. We now come to a time where we express our thanks. And firstly, I'd like to express those thanks to Pat herself. Pat, thank you for being you, for being the beautifully supportive wife to Stan, for being the best mum to Julie, David, Jenny, Trevor, Chris and Kathy that you could be, for being the most wonderful grandma and nan of your 13 grandchildren, your 10 great-grandchildren and your 2 great-great-grandchildren. Thank you for your vigorous love-hate relationship with politics and politicians, for showing your family how to be strong-willed and determined, but always maintaining your softness and your sweetness, for your ability to grow and to beautify in your garden, for being resourceful, inventive and creative, for all of the things that made you, you, for the special, unique person that we have loved and that we will continue to love. And now I would like to invite you, Pat's family, to come forward and to place a flower on her coffin. And this could be a last, final act of thank you and giving to this lady who has spent so much of her life giving to others. Could be Pat's wish for us as we move forward into our future without her. And it says, may the road rise up to meet you, may the wind be always at your back, may the sun shine warm upon your face and the rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you safe in the palm of his hand. What we're essentially doing today is the putting away of Patricia's body. We let you know her, the thing that enlivened this body, Pat, is gone. But that thing will never be completely lost to you, however, because you all have a little bit stuck inside of you, and you will have too, until you find yourselves here with somebody like me clumsily reading words over your own coffins. But until then, you will never forget Pat. You will always think a little bit like her. you'll act a bit like her, and you'll laugh at the same things that she laughed at, and you'll probably cry a little bit from time to time because of her. Pat will visit you in your dreams, and you'll think you overheard her voice in a crowd, and tears will form, but so will your smile. You will smile the smile of someone who has had the honour of knowing Pat. It's a kind of secret knowing smile though, isn't it? Because not everyone saw it, and maybe that's what makes Pat so special to you. And now she remains locked up inside of you, warm in your hearts and safe in your love. Let her rest there. Let her ride with you. Take her away with you today, and remember what moved you about her. Be stronger for her. Be better. Be kinder. Your mum, your mother-in-law, your nan, your Pat. So Pat, we say goodbye to your physical presence amongst us, and we must commit you. We commit you to our hearts, to our minds, and to our memory. We commit to the telling of your story so that others will know you better. We commit to loving you. It is perhaps the same way that a sort of cutting taken from one person and grafted onto the heart of another continues to carry on its existence, even when the person from whom it had been detached has perished. Thank you.
I took the supermarket flyers from the windowsill, threw the day-old tea from the cup, packed up the photo album Matthew had made, memories of a life that's been loved. Took the get-well-soon cars and stuffed animals, poured the old ginger beer down the sink. Dad always told me, don't you cry when you're down, but Mum, there's a tear every time that I blink. Oh, I'm in pieces, it's tearing me up, but I know a heart that's broke is a heart that's been loved, so I'll sing hallelujah. You were an angel in the shape of my mum. When I fell down, you'd be there holding me up. Spread your wings as you go. When God takes you back, He'll say hallelujah, you're home. Fluffed the pillows, made the bed, stacked the chairs up, folded your nightgowns neatly in a case. John said he'd drive, then put his hand on my cheek and wiped a tear from the side of my face. And I hope that I see the world as you did, 'cause I know a life with love is a life that's been lived, so I'll sing hallelujah. You were an angel in the shape of my mum. When I fell down, you'd be there holding me up. Spread your wings as you go, and when God takes you back, He'll say hallelujah, you're home. Hallelujah, you were an angel in the shape of my mum. got to see the person I have become. Spread your wings, and I know that when God took you back, He said, hallelujah, you're home.